video you are about to watch is a man who died, and what Jesus showed him changed his life forever. Today, he wants to share that experience with you. If you found this video, don't scroll away. You may think it's a coincidence, but this message could be exactly what you need to hear today. Stay with me until the end, because every part of this testimony matters. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I'd love to know where our family is joining from. If this message touches your heart, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone you care about. Now, take a deep breath, listen carefully, and let this testimony speak to your heart. My name doesn't matter. I'm not going to say it here, and if you're wondering why, it's for my own safety and for my family's. Some things you learn not to broadcast carelessly once you understand how real they are. So just call me a 50-year-old man. That's all you need to know about who I am. What matters is what happened to me, because I don't believe for 1 second that I came back just to keep it to myself. I need to start slow, because if I rush through this, I'm going to lose the parts that actually matter. And I've promised myself I wouldn't do that again. I've told this story a few times now. To my wife first, then to my pastor, then to a couple of close friends who I trusted enough to sit through it without looking at me like I'd lost my mind. Every single time, my chest tightens in the same place, right about here, when I get to the part where I stop breathing. So bear with me if I pause. This isn't something I've gotten used to telling. It started small. What the doctors thought was minor. I'm not going to walk you through the illness itself. It's not the point of any of this, and honestly, dwelling on the medical details takes away from what actually matters, which is what happened after. What matters is that I ended up in a hospital bed, hooked to machines that beeped in a rhythm I'd stopped noticing after the first day, more annoyed than scared if I'm being completely honest with you. I remember thinking, I'll be out of here by the weekend. I had a life waiting outside those walls, a job, a lawn that needed mowing, a grandson's birthday coming up that I didn't want to miss. I wasn't thinking about eternity. I wasn't thinking about God in any real sense, even though if you'd stopped me in the hallway and asked, I would have told you, without hesitation, that I was a Christian. I went to church most Sundays. I said grace before meals. I figured that was enough. I want you to sit with that for a second, because it matters later. I figured that was enough. I remember lying there the night before, staring at the ceiling tile with the water stain shaped like a crooked question mark, and thinking about nothing in particular, just tired thoughts, half-formed prayers that were really just habits. Lord, help me get some sleep, help this pass quickly. Nothing urgent, nothing that felt like it mattered beyond that room. Then, without much warning at all, everything changed. I felt pressure build in my chest, not sharp pain exactly, more like something reaching in and taking hold of something underneath my ribs. And then the room got loud, all at once, faster than I could follow. Voices, footsteps, something metal clattering against the floor. And then, just as fast, it went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, wrong quiet. I heard someone say my name, sharp frightened, and then I heard nothing at all. What came next? I need to tell you plainly, because I know this is the part where people either believe me or they don't. And I've made my peace with that a long time ago. I felt myself lift, not float, the way people describe it sometimes. Lift, like something reached down and pulled me straight up and out of where I'd been lying. And the strangest part wasn't even the lifting itself. It was the confusion that came right behind it. I looked down, and I want you to understand, I wasn't thinking in some poetic, spiritual way in that moment. I was thinking like a man who just woke up somewhere he didn't recognize, trying to make sense of what his eyes were telling him. I saw myself, lying there, still. A nurse had both hands pressed against my chest, counting under her breath. Another one was reaching across the bed for something on a cart, moving fast, urgent. And I remember thinking, in this very plain, almost stupid way, that's me. Why am I looking at me? I tried to breathe, out of pure instinct, the way you gasp when you're startled awake. Nothing happened. No air went in, no air went out. And that's when it hit me, not gradually, like a wave building, more like a door slamming shut behind me with no warning. I wasn't breathing anymore. I wasn't in that body anymore. I tried to call out to the nurse, tried to tell her I was right here, right above her, watching, and there was nothing. No sound came from me, no breath behind any sound to carry it. I wasn't panicking yet. I think I was too confused to panic in that first stretch of time. It's strange to admit that now, but confusion arrived first, and fear came trailing a few seconds behind it, chasing it down like it was trying to catch up. Then it set in fully. really set in, the way truth does when there's no more room to avoid it. I was dead. My body was lying right there beneath me, motionless except for the desperate hands working on it. And I was not inside it anymore. And I understood, with a certainty I have never felt about anything else in my entire life, before that moment or since, that I had crossed over. I had died. There's no softer way to say that, no easier phrase to reach for. One moment I was a man in a hospital bed, irritated about missing a weekend of ordinary life. And the next, I was standing outside my own body, watching strangers fight to save a version of me I no longer belonged to. I don't know how long I stayed there, if stayed is even the right word, because I'm not sure I had feet the way I understood feet before. Time didn't behave the way it does here. It didn't move forward in the steady, countable way I was used to. But at some point, without any clear transition, the room I'd been standing in simply wasn't there anymore. It didn't fade out like a movie scene dissolving. It was more like I turned towards something, and the moment I turned, the hospital room was behind me, gone, no longer relevant to whatever was happening to me now, and I was moving. I don't know how else to explain it to you. I wasn't walking, I wasn't flying, not the way you'd picture flying. I was simply moving, and there was nothing around me I could point to and call a wall, a floor, a sky. I want to be careful here, because I know people expect a certain kind of description when they hear stories like mine. A tunnel, a light at the end of it. And I don't want to hand you something just because it's the picture you already have in your head. I'll tell you only what I actually experienced. There was a sense of going somewhere, a direction, even though I couldn't have told you which way counted as forward or up. And there was a feeling that came over me during that movement that I have spent months now trying to find the right words for, turning it over in my mind late at night. And the closest I can get is this. It was peace that had weight to it. Not the loose, temporary peace of relaxing on a couch after a long week. A peace that pressed into me, that reached down into the fear I'd been carrying since I first understood I had died, and loosened it. Not erased it completely, loosened it the way a hand loosens a fist that's been clenched too long. I heard things during that passage that I still can't fully explain to you, even now, even after turning them over in my memory 100 times. Not music exactly, not voices exactly, though it carried something of both inside it. It was more like sound before it becomes sound. Something underneath hearing, something my ears weren't built for, but some other part of me understood anyway. I remember thinking, even in the middle of all that confusion and movement, this is not something my mind is making up. I could never invent this on my own. That thought has never left me since. Whatever I was experiencing wasn't coming from inside my own head. It was coming from somewhere outside me entirely, somewhere real. Somewhere with its own weight and its own truth that didn't need my belief to exist. There was a sense, too, growing stronger the further I moved, of holiness. I don't use that word carelessly, and I didn't fully understand it in that moment the way I understand it now, months later, having had all this time to sit with what happened. But even then, without having the words for it yet, I knew I was somewhere clean in a way nothing on this earth is clean. Not clean like a scrubbed hospital room, clean all the way down, in a way that made me suddenly, uncomfortably aware of every hidden corner of my own life, every unkind thing I'd said and later excused, every quiet compromise I'd made and told myself didn't count, every private thought I'd let live in the dark because no one else could see it. I felt exposed. Not humiliated exactly, just exposed, the way you'd feel if every wall you'd ever built to hide behind was suddenly, gently, taken away, and there was nowhere left to stand except out in the open. And then, without any warning I could point to or brace myself for, I was in his presence. I need to slow all the way down here, because if I rush through this part, I won't do it justice. And out of everything I'm telling you, this is the part that matters most. This is the part I've replayed every single day since it happened, trying to hold on to every piece of it before it fades the way memories sometimes do. I didn't see him the way you'd see a person walk into a room and take a seat across from you. It was more like I became aware that I was standing in front of him, the way you become aware of the sun warming your skin before you ever look up and actually see it. There was light, yes, but I'm not going to keep circling back to describing light to you over and over, because that was never really the point of what happened. The point was him. Everything else in that place, as overwhelming as it was, felt like it existed only to point toward him, the way every road in a city eventually leads back to the one place everyone is really trying to reach. I knew who he was instantly. I didn't need to be told, and he didn't need any kind of introduction. Every part of me, whatever me even was in that moment, standing there without a body to lean on, simply knew this was Jesus. Not a painting of Jesus I'd seen hanging in a Sunday school classroom. Not an idea of Jesus I carried around loosely since childhood. The way you carry around a fact you were taught once and never questioned. Him. The real him standing directly in front of me, and every single thing I had ever heard about him in 50 years of half-attentive church-going suddenly stopped being a story and became the realest thing I had ever encountered. I fell. I don't know if fell is physically accurate for whatever I was in that moment without a body to fall with, but that's exactly what it felt like. Everything in me simply gave out and went down, not because I was pushed, not because I feared being struck or punished. I went down because there was nothing else my whole being knew how to do in front of something. Someone that holy, that overwhelming, that completely real. I want you to understand something clearly. I had grown up hearing about Jesus my entire life. I could have recited the Sunday school answers in my sleep. Son of God, died on the cross for our sins, rose again on the third day. I believed it the way you believe a fact you were taught in school and never had reason to question. The distance to the moon, the boiling point of water at sea level. True, sure, but distant. Something you accept without ever really feeling the weight of it pressing on your own life. Kneeling, or whatever position I was actually in, however that translates without a body. In front of him, all of that distance collapsed in a single instant, like something that had been held up by string finally snapping under real weight. This was not a fact anymore. This was not a story passed down to me by well-meaning Sunday school teachers with felt boards and picture books. This was the single most real thing I had ever encountered in my entire existence. More real than the hospital bed I'd left behind. More real than my own two hands had ever felt. More real than my wife's voice calling me in from the yard for dinner. More real than anything I had ever touched, tasted, or held on to across 50 years of ordinary living. Everything else, looking back on it now from this side, felt like a shadow of a shadow next to what it was to stand in front of him. And here is the part that undid me completely. The part I still can't get through without my voice catching. I expected, if I had time to expect anything at all in the chaos of what was happening, I expected judgment. I expected to feel small in a way that crushed me flat, ashamed in a way that had no floor to it, no bottom I could eventually land on. And there was shame, real shame. I won't sit here and pretend otherwise, because lying about that would cheapen everything else I'm telling you. But underneath the shame, holding it steady the way a hand holds something fragile, was love. Not love the way we throw the word around here, spent carelessly on anything we happened to like that day. Love that had authority behind it. Love that had already made a decision about me long before I ever stood there trembling in front of him. Love that looked directly at every failure I had ever collected across my whole life and did not flinch away from a single one of them. I don't remember exactly how it started, whether he spoke first or whether I tried to speak first and simply failed to make any sound come out. I remember his voice more clearly than I remember the actual words arranged into sentences, if that makes any sense to you at all. It wasn't loud. It never needed to be loud. It was the kind of voice you feel as much as you hear, and every single word landed with a weight that ordinary human words never carry. Not even the most important ones we say to each other down here. He told me, and I'm going to give this to you, as close to what I actually heard as I possibly can, because I have no interest in adding to it or taking anything away from it. He told me that the place he had prepared was ready. I didn't understand at first what he meant by that. And then, almost like a memory surfacing from somewhere I'd buried it, I thought of a verse I had heard read at nearly every funeral I'd ever attended. The kind of verse you hear so many times it stops registering as words and just becomes background noise. Familiar the way a hymn is familiar. In my Father's house are many mansions. I go to prepare a place for you. John chapter 14. I had heard that verse my entire life and never once really sat with it, never let it land anywhere deep enough to change how I lived. Standing there in front of him, it stopped being a verse printed in the back of a funeral program. It became the realest thing anyone had ever spoken directly to me. He showed me something. I don't fully know how to describe showing in that place, because I don't believe I was seeing it the way I see things with my eyes down here. But I was given a glimpse, only a glimpse, not the whole of it, not even close, of what that place actually was. I want to be careful with you here, because I don't want to turn this into some wild, exaggerated description that ends up sounding like I'm trying to sell you a fantasy novel. That's not what this was. What I saw was beauty that made everything beautiful I had ever encountered on this earth look like a child's crayon drawing taped to a refrigerator door next to it. It wasn't gold and jewels stacked up for show. That's not what struck me about it, though I understand why people imagine it that way. What struck me was how alive everything was, how present. how nothing there carried any hint of decay or aging or running out of time the way everything down here quietly, constantly does, whether we notice it or not. On Earth, nearly everything beautiful is beautiful precisely because it's passing. A sunset you know will be gone in minutes, a season that will turn, a person's youth that will fade no matter how hard they fight it. There, nothing was passing. Everything simply was, fully, completely, without any shadow of an ending hanging over any part of it. And I felt, more than anything else in that glimpse, the presence of God filling that place. I don't have adequate language for this part, and I've tried more times than I can count. Every time I try to describe it, the words that come out feel smaller than what I actually felt, like trying to hold the ocean in your two cupped hands. It was like being fully known and fully loved in the exact same instant, with absolutely nothing left out, nothing hidden away in some private corner. And instead of that being terrifying the way you'd think total exposure would be, it was the safest I had ever felt in my entire life. Safer than my mother's arms when I was a frightened boy, safer than anything I had ever known before or since. Jesus told me, and this part he said plainly, with no confusion in it at all, that many of his people were not ready. He didn't say it with anger. That matters, and I want you to understand that clearly. There was no rage in his voice, no condemnation like you might picture from some courtroom scene. What I felt instead was grief. His grief, and somehow for a moment it became my grief too, borrowed straight from him and placed in my own chest. He said the place had been ready for a long time, prepared and waiting, but that many who called themselves his were not ready to receive it. Not because he was withholding it from anyone, not because the door was somehow locked against them, because they had never truly turned to him for it in the first place. I understood, standing there in front of him, that he wasn't talking about people who had never once heard his name spoken. He was talking about people exactly like me, people who showed up at church most Sundays, people who said the prayers they'd memorized as children without ever once feeling the weight of the words leaving their mouth, people who wore the label Christian the way you'd wear a jacket on a cold morning, easy to put on, just as easy to take off, never once really touching the skin underneath it. He made it clear to me, without ever needing to raise his voice, without ever needing to shame me further than I already felt, that calling yourself his was not the same thing as actually belonging to him, that going through familiar motions was not the same thing as surrendering an entire life. I felt, standing there every single Sunday I had sat in a pew quietly thinking about lunch instead of the God I claimed to be worshiping that morning. I felt every rushed, half-hearted prayer I had said purely out of habit instead of out of any real hunger for him. It wasn't spoken to me as an accusation, harsh or otherwise. It was simply true, laid bare in front of both of us at once, and there was nowhere left to hide from it, and strangely, I didn't even want to hide from it anymore. Then something shifted, and I felt a weight settle over the moment itself. If a moment can even carry weight the way I'm describing it, he let me understand, somehow, without words this time, what it actually means for someone to reject him. I want to be very careful here, because I am not going to sit here and describe some graphic, frightening vision meant to scare you into anything. That was never the point of what I saw, and even if it had been shown to me that way, I don't believe fear was ever meant to be the center of any of this. What I felt instead was separation. I felt for just a moment what it means to exist forever without the one thing that actually makes existence worth anything at all, without him. I felt the full tragedy of a person spending 60, 70, 80 years of their one life chasing money, comfort, approval, pleasure, good things sometimes, not always sinful things in themselves, and arriving at the very end of all of it with nothing but empty, open hands, having spent every single day of a short life preparing for absolutely nothing that would last one moment past their own funeral. I felt how brief this life actually is when measured against what comes after it, like comparing a single breath to the entire ocean stretching out past the horizon. And I felt how many people live every day as though this one breath is all there ever is, spending it carelessly on everything except the one who gave it to them in the first place. It broke something open inside me. I started crying. I don't know if you can technically cry without a body, but whatever the version of that is where I was standing. I was doing it fully, without any restraint left in me. I thought of my own life stretched out behind me. I thought of years I had wasted chasing things that meant absolutely nothing in this light. I thought of people I loved, friends, family, faces I could picture clearly even standing there, who were living exactly the way I had just been shown, chasing after things that wouldn't survive a single day past their own funeral. And I understood, with a clarity I had never had access to before, what was actually at stake in all of this. Not church attendance, not religious performance kept up for appearances. Souls. Real people, real souls, standing one day exactly where I was standing right then, discovering too late what they had spent their entire lives quietly avoiding. And then I told him I didn't want to go back. I said it plainly, the way you'd beg for something with absolutely everything you have left in you. I told him I didn't want to return to my body, to my life, to any part of it. Not because my life down here was bad. I had a wife who loved me faithfully for decades, children who still called just to check on me, a home with a porch light I'd fixed myself the summer before. But compared to what I had just tasted, all of it together felt like nothing, like trying to compare a single grain of sand to an entire shoreline. I told him I wanted to stay exactly where I was. I remember communicating, however that actually works in a place like that, without needing to form words the way we do down here, that I couldn't imagine returning to a world that still had pain in it, sickness in it, sin still tangled through every corner of it. After standing this close to him even once, I begged. I'm not ashamed to admit that to you now. I begged him with everything left in me to let me stay. He didn't answer right away, and in that pause, however long it actually lasted, since time meant nothing there, I felt something pass between us that I can only describe as tenderness. Not pity, tenderness. The way a father looks at a child who doesn't yet understand why the answer he's about to hear is going to be no, and loves him anyway, fully, in the middle of that disappointment. He told me my time had not yet ended. I remember arguing, as much as anyone can argue with someone whose mere presence had already flattened every last ounce of pride I had left in me. I told him I wasn't ready to leave him, not after everything I had just seen and felt and understood. And he told me something I will never, as long as I draw breath, forget the full weight of. He said I had to go back, not because what I had experienced there wasn't completely real, not because heaven was somehow a lesser truth than the ordinary life I was being sent back into, but because there were still people who needed to hear what I had just been shown. He said I had to warn them. He was specific about what that warning needed to include, and I want to pass this on to you as exactly as I understood it in that moment, without adding a single thing to it, because I don't believe it's my place to embellish what he said to me. He told me that people needed to hear, clearly and without confusion, that calling yourself a Christian is not the same thing as actually being ready to meet him. That sitting in a church pew every Sunday morning does not, on its own, mean a person has genuinely surrendered their heart to him. That saying a prayer once, years ago at some altar call or vacation Bible school, and never once returning to him afterward with any real hunger, does not mean a person is prepared for what waits on the other side of this life. He said people needed to hear that he is calling them back, genuinely back, not toward religion as a system or a habit, but toward him personally. To repent honestly, to release the sin they've quietly made peace with instead of surrendering it, to forgive the people they've been carrying resentment toward for years, sometimes for so long they've forgotten it's even a weight anymore, to love the people directly in front of them the way he has already loved them, without condition, to seek him earnestly, not merely believe true facts about him from a distance, to live according to what he has already clearly spoken in his word, rather than quietly editing out the parts that happen to be inconvenient or costly. He told me, and this part he said gently, but with a firmness I could feel settle into me like something I needed to carry home exactly as it was given, that he could not force a single person to listen, that the choice would always belong to each person individually. But that I had been shown this, and I had been given the chance to return and speak it, and what mattered now, more than anything else, was faithfulness on my part. Not results, not whether anyone actually listened to me or not, just faithfulness in delivering exactly what I had been shown without softening it, and without exaggerating it either. I kept resisting even after that. I want to be completely honest with you about that part, because I don't want you walking away thinking I emerged from that encounter as some perfectly surrendered, peaceful man. In that exact instant, I wasn't. I was desperate. I told him again that I didn't want to leave his presence, that nothing waiting for me on earth could possibly be worth trading this for. Not my house, not my job, not even the people I loved most. And he said the words that I think about every single day since it happened. The sentence I would say sits at the very center of this entire testimony, more than anything else I could possibly tell you. He told me I was being sent back, not because what I had seen was any less real for it, not because heaven was somehow a smaller truth than the world I was returning to, but because there were still people on this earth who needed to hear this message before their own time ran out, completely. I didn't get any further say in the matter after that. I understood, without being told outright in so many words, that the decision had already been settled, and that continuing to argue wasn't going to change a single thing about it. There was a strange kind of peace even inside that realization, Not the peace of getting what I wanted, but the peace of trusting that whoever was making this decision for me knew infinitely more about why it mattered than I possibly could from where I stood. And then, without any warning at all, without any gentle transition to soften the landing, I was slammed back into my body. I don't have a softer way to describe it to you than that. It was violent. It was sudden, faster than anything I've ever experienced before or since. One moment I was standing in the most peaceful, holy presence I have ever known in my entire existence, and the next, I felt pain rip straight through my chest like something was cracking me open from the inside out. I heard sound come rushing back all at once, too loud, too sharp, almost unbearable after the quiet I'd just left. Beeping machines, raised voices, someone shouting something I couldn't yet make sense of. I felt my lungs fight desperately for air like they'd genuinely forgotten how to do their job. And then air rushed in hard, and it burned, actually burned, all the way down my throat and into my chest. I felt hands pressing against me, urgent and rough with adrenaline. I felt the hard, flat surface of the hospital bed underneath me again, and my whole body felt impossibly heavy in a way I had never once noticed a body could feel heavy before. Heavy like gravity itself had somehow doubled while I was gone. I opened my eyes, and the light in that room was blinding in a completely different way than the light I had just left behind. Sharp, artificial, genuinely painful against eyes that had just been somewhere else entirely. There were people crowded around me, a doctor, a couple of nurses, someone with their hands still pressed flat against my chest, still moving, like part of them hadn't fully caught up yet to the fact that something had changed. I heard someone say, he's back, relief cracking through their voice, and I remember thinking, in this strange, disconnected way that still makes me shake my head now, back. Yes, that's exactly what this is. I'm back. As if I'd simply stepped out of the room for a moment and returned, when in truth I had been somewhere no one in that room could have possibly imagined. I couldn't speak for a long while after that. My throat felt raw and torn. My chest ached with every single breath I took. And honestly, part of me didn't even want to speak yet, because I already knew that the second I opened my mouth and tried to explain what had just happened to me, I was going to sound like a man who had lost his mind entirely. I lay there for what felt like a very long time, just breathing, feeling every single breath, like it was something brand new. I had to learn how to appreciate all over again from the very beginning. When I finally did try to explain any of it, to my wife first, who had been called in and was standing over my bed with tears running freely down her face, far more relieved simply that I was alive than curious yet about anything else. She just held my hand tightly and told me to rest, that we could talk about all of it later. The doctors were entirely focused on the medical side of things in those first hours, checking vitals, running through exactly what had happened to my body from a clinical standpoint, asking careful questions about pain levels and lingering symptoms. Nobody in that room was asking me what I had seen. Nobody was ready yet to hear anything beyond the numbers on the monitors. And honestly, I don't think I was fully ready to say it out loud yet either. It took days, real days, before I even attempted to put any of it into words for another living person. But something in me had already changed, long before I ever spoke a single word about it out loud to anyone. I could feel it clearly, lying in that hospital bed those first few nights, staring up at the ceiling while machines beeped quietly around me in the dark. The things that used to matter to me so much. Old arguments I'd been holding on to out of pure stubbornness, small grudges, petty disagreements I let ruin entire days at a time. All of it felt embarrassingly small now, almost laughable in comparison to what I just witnessed. I kept thinking about the people I hadn't forgiven yet. I kept thinking about how much time I had spent chasing after things that wouldn't matter one single bit the moment I stood in front of him again someday. I kept turning that word over in my mind, the one he had used, ready, and running my own life back through it like a filter, seeing clearly, for the first time, exactly how much of it didn't pass through clean. When I finally got home, weeks later, thinner and slower than I'd been before, I wasn't the same man who had walked into that hospital feeling only mildly inconvenienced. My wife noticed it before I ever said a single direct word to her about any of it. I started praying differently almost immediately, not reciting the same worn phrases I'd repeated 1,000 times out of pure habit, but actually talking to him, the way you talk to someone you had just met face to face and never wanted to lose touch with again for as long as you lived. I picked up my Bible, which had mostly sat untouched on a shelf collecting dust for far longer than I'm comfortable admitting to you. And I started reading it like it was alive in my hands, because after what I had experienced, I understood in my bones that it actually was. I called people I hadn't spoken to in years, people I had let old bitterness build a quiet wall against without ever fully realizing how tall that wall had grown. And I asked for forgiveness where I owed it, And I gave forgiveness freely where it was owed to me, because I had personally felt what it was like to be forgiven completely and instantly by someone who had every right in the universe not to forgive me at all. I started showing up differently for the people around me. Not perfectly, I want to be honest with you about that, because I'm still the same flawed man in a lot of ordinary ways. I still lose my patience on a bad day. I still catch myself thinking selfishly before I catch myself at all. This experience didn't turn me into some flawless, glowing saint overnight, and I'd be lying to you if I said it had. But it changed the direction I'm actually walking in now. It changed what I'm chasing with whatever years I have left. I used to live like I had all the time in the world stretched out ahead of me. I don't live like that anymore, not for a single day. I know now, in a way I never truly knew before that hospital bed, exactly how short this life actually is, and exactly how eternal what comes after it really is. I've told this story now to a small handful of people in person, and every single time, I watch their faces closely, trying to figure out whether they believe me or whether they think I'm simply a man who survived some kind of medical crisis and is now filling in the gaps afterward with religious imagination to make sense of it. I understand that skepticism completely. Honestly, if I hadn't lived through it myself, standing exactly where you're sitting right now, I might feel that same skepticism too. But I know what I experienced. I know what I heard, and I know what I felt with a clarity I have never doubted since, not even once. And I know that I have never, not for a single day since that moment, been able to shake the seriousness of what I was told to do with the rest of my life. So here I am, telling you, I don't fully understand why I was the one allowed to come back. I've asked myself that question more times than I could ever count, lying awake in the dark long after my wife has fallen asleep beside me. Why me? Why send me back instead of letting me stay? Why choose me to tell people who might not even bother to listen? I don't have a clean, tidy answer for you on that. What I do have is a clear instruction, and I'm not going to pretend I fully understand every reason it was given to me, instead of someone else more qualified, more eloquent, more convincing. All I know is what I was shown, and what I was told plainly to do with it afterward, and I'd rather obey that instruction than sit here quietly and let the memory of it slowly fade into something safe and comfortable to keep tucked away from myself. So let me say this to you directly, because I genuinely believe, I believe it as much as I believe anything else in my life now, that you watching this right now is not some accident. If you've been calling yourself a Christian without ever really giving your whole life over to Him, if church has quietly become a habit instead of an actual relationship, if prayer has become empty, familiar words instead of a real conversation with a real person, if you've been telling yourself for years now that you'll get serious about God someday, later, once things finally settle down, I'm asking you, from everything I was personally shown, please don't wait. You don't know how much time you actually have left. None of us do. I certainly didn't know it, lying in that hospital bed thinking I'd simply be discharged by the weekend. If you've been running from Him, if you know exactly what I'm talking about right now as you hear this, if there's one specific thing in your life you've been quietly avoiding dealing with, a sin you've made a comfortable peace with instead of ever surrendering it, a person you've refused to forgive out of pure stubborn pride, a whole version of your life you've carefully built that has no real room left in it for Him, I'm asking you, as plainly as I know how, to stop running. Turn around. He is not far from you right now. He was not far from me either, even after 50 years of half-hearted, distracted faith, and He met me the very second I stood in front of Him, with more love than I had any right whatsoever to receive. I don't know why I was allowed to come back. I only know what I was told to do with the time I've been given since. And what I was told to do was tell you exactly this, that the place He has prepared is completely real, that it is ready and waiting, and that the only real question left standing is whether you are. If you have been running from God, don't wait until you convince yourself you have more time. Turn back to Christ while you still can. I'll leave you with the same question He left with me, the one I have not been able to shake for a single day since I opened my eyes back in that hospital bed, and the one I'm asking you to sit with right now, honestly, without rushing past it the way I let myself rush past it for 50 long years of my own life. If Jesus called you today, right now, would you truly be ready? Let me know in the comment section your response. Are you ready to meet with the Lord, or are still waiting for the right time? Know this, there is no right time. Today is the right time for you to make peace with the Lord, and He has a lot of good things awaiting you. Don't see the struggle here on earth. The preparation is ready, but believers are not. Please spread the word of God as to as many people you can, because those people matters to God. Thank you for listening to this very point. I pray that on that day when we will be going to be with the Lord, you will be found worthy. Please, before you go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more of this testimonies coming your way. Stay blessed.